Welcome, guys. Plenty of room up the front. We've been waiting for you. Take a seat. Yep. Jump up here. Good to have you. Reckon we've given people enough time. Hi, everybody. And if you guys don't want to stand up the back and you want to come and sit up the front, feel free. Cara, or is it you that smells really nice? Either way, it's probably me. Thanks very much, guys. Andrew's my name, Head of Communications for Dentsu Aegis Network, and also one of the leads on Agency Exchange, which is the way for the operating model to get a little bit more upfront and personal with everyone who works here, make you guys more capable professionals as part of Dentsu Aegis Network, get a greater understanding of all the brands, new and old. And today we've got one of the newest. In fact, I think this brand was born how long ago? There we go. Not even a year old. Already, Cara's doing great work with some of the clients which you're going to hear about today. There is a podcast featuring Cara, who's led a brilliant life as well, and I wasn't too bad in that podcast myself either, so jump on and have a listen to that. But without any further ado, we'll hand over to Conrad. Are you going to say something first, and then you're going to hand over to Cara to talk a bit about Isobar Good?
Yeah, maybe a bit of both. Thanks, Huey. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming down to Isobar and for giving up an hour this morning to hear a little bit about Isobar Good. It's pretty humbling to be up here with Cara to talk about it, because really Cara and the wider team have been the driving force of Isobar Good in this business for a few years, and it's pretty exciting to be able to share sort of the journey of where it's been, where it's come to today, but also what we feel like we can do together in the Dentsu Aegis network. So what I might do is kick off by showing a video first, which probably sums up what Isobar Good's really all about. Some of you may have seen this before. It's some work that we did with Monash Health in Victoria in terms of assisting chronically ill teenagers moving from pediatric care into adult care and not being sort of falling through the gaps. And it's work we probably did a couple of years ago, but it was shown at the UN General Assembly in 2016. So we'll play that first. It'll introduce Cara better than I can.
Welcome to our very first Isobar and Monash Health Design Jam. We want to explore how we can use different types of thinking in the health space to solve different problems. You have free rein. There's no rules. You're here for a reason, and you've got permission to really question things that happen in your life. The Monash Health and Isobar Good Design Jam is a chance for us to all get together, work in a different way, step outside the hospital environment space, and get really hands-on with problem solving.
Isobar has offered us an opportunity to really toss things up in the air and look at how things currently function and how we can improve on that.
We're aiming for ways to improve how we can transition from obviously paediatric care to adult care, because most of the illnesses that we do face do continue from childhood into adulthood, and something you have to deal with for the whole time.
I'm the mother of two children with health challenges. So I have a 16-year-old daughter who has mild cerebral palsy, and I have a 12-year-old son who has Asperger's syndrome. So I've seen a lot of the paediatric health system. This whole idea of a design jam was just fabulous as a different way of looking at healthcare from a patient perspective. The more we can get outside of healthcare to look at healthcare, it's going to be a good thing.
So today we've got a mixture of patients, nurses, designers, students. Human-centred design is all about gaining empathy with the people that we're designing for. So they're involved throughout the whole process, so we really step in their shoes.
As a doctor, I think it's just really good to stop and actively think about these issues. Having patients to talk to and hear their opinions, some of the stories I've heard today, I think will definitely change my clinical practice.
At the end of the day, everything is about moving forward, and this is the way that the health system can do it. Even though it's an abstract way of doing it, I think it's very effective.
Working at Isobar and being able to do initiatives like this is so empowering and motivating. We ended up coming up with a whole range of ideas, from a patient-doctor app to share information, and also a patient-to-patient buddy system. We're now working together to bring some of these ideas to life.
What I would love to see is this be just a beginning. This is our go-to place. When we've got a real problem that we don't know how to solve, we take it to a design jam with Isobar Good. Who knows where it can lead?
So that's a piece of work we're obviously pretty proud of, and has led to more programs of work with Monash Health. But it's only one of the I guess key challenges that we know society is facing today. You only have to turn on sort of any news channel or read any newspaper to sort of see that the world has got some pretty fundamentally huge challenges ahead of us that we've all really got to take notice of and play a role in helping solve. I think 1.3 billion tonnes of food waste a year goes, probably through Deliveroo bags in people's rubbish bin. But we have, 1 billion people that go starving every day around the world. And locally here in Australia, we have I think it's more than 8 people a day die through taking their own lives and really have some mental health issues associated with that and fall through the gaps of the system. And even locally in Victoria, 1 female still a week dies at the hand of her partner or previous partner due to domestic violence. So huge challenges, and this is not about making everyone feel bad about the world, this session, because we do believe that we have a way of helping solve these. And we know that we need to do this. We can't just sort of have a wish and a prayer. We need to, and we can't overcome them by accident. We need to design a solution. We need to really have true intent and true focus in tackling society's problems. So that's really what Isobar Good is all about. It's a dedicated division and a dedicated unit of Isobar that is all about tackling these societal issues and making sure that we can create sustainable and enduring communities of tomorrow. Is yours dead, is it? I'll hand over. And Kara's going to talk a little bit more as well about Dan's move from CSR to social impact as a policy. Part of the larger enterprise strategy for the Dense Regis Network globally is to recognise society as their 4th key stakeholder in everything that we do. And they're really looking at changing their policy around that to make sure that we can actually show some true action and some engagement in communities. Not only that, as you would have heard Jerry or Simon talk a lot about the digital economy, really we need to believe that a digital economy should have a benefit for everybody. It shouldn't create bigger divides in the world, but should actually bring everybody together. And so we want to partner on transformative initiatives to do that and seek a better future by design. And why we say design and why we feel like Isobar has a role to play in that is because that's what we do. We design experience-led transformation, which you guys would have, if any of you went to Eric's talk about Isobar, you would have seen. And a lot of the outputs about what we create will come out in something that might be digital marketing to sort of create awareness or a focus around a certain issue, creating a sort of digital ecosystem that can help solve that issue by bringing communities and brands and people together, or creating new products, or helping an organisation sort of uplift their capability to truly tackle problems.
Thanks, Connors. I think I've got my mic working now. So those are all our offerings Conrad just spoke about. So marketing, ecosystems, product inventors and business design. And we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, the value add of Isobar Good and how Isobar Good is a little bit special for now. So first of all, it's also really weird seeing yourself in a video that was actually quite an old video, but we wanted to show it again because it was really kind of the start of Isobar Good, and I feel really lucky to be here today, sort of standing next to Conrad, because I've been at Isobar for about 4 years, and not only has this place kind of helped me find, what I'm good at and what I enjoy, and I guess what my career is, being an experience designer, but it's also really helped me find my passion, which is essentially that we can change the world and make the world a better place through design. And it all sort of came together. I started here at Isobar not long after I lost my dad, actually, in a pretty traumatic incident where I had a first-hand experience with our hospital and health system. So I'm not sure if any of, a lot of you here have probably had loved ones in the healthcare system. It's a bit shit. It's not designed from a user or patient point of view. And that was the moment for me that I was like, I need to fix this. I need to, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I don't want anybody else to go through this. And this is before I really knew what experience design was, but That's when, I was really inspired that, all our skills and capabilities that we have here at Isobar and within the network, we really can have a big impact on things like the health system and beyond. So that's exactly what we're doing through Isobar Good. So we're going to tackle society's wicked problems by design, changing the world one experience at a time. So how we're going to do that is, and we're going to dive down deep into that in the next sort of half an hour or so, but we align to one or more of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We have a specific human-centred design and agile methodology to help us align to those goals and to create impact. And then we measure the impact that we have beyond cost or time. So what that enables us to do is help organisations like charities, not-for-profits, governments do more good by delivering value through experience design, but it also helps us, and I think this is where we can really play a dynamic role, is it helps us integrate social impact into the business models of other organisations like corporates and government. And then we bring all those outcomes to life by the creative use of digital.
So why do we create a new division? It's not a new brand. Jean Lin, who's the global CEO of Isobar, she'll kill me if I say it's a new brand. But we created this new division really to kind of give the business some focus and give some focus around this. We're very passionate about what Cara spoke about, and we feel like not only Isobar but the Dense Regions Network, people here have a skill set that organisations, government organisations, not-for-profits, people doing good in the world really need to help solve the challenges that they face. So we feel like we should all be part of doing that, not just driving economic growth, but being able to hopefully solve these big challenges in society. But if we do that, secondly, we feel like we can also build a bigger community, a bigger network, not just at Isobar, but with the wider network and with our clients and our corporate partners. And that opens up a whole bunch of new conversations that we can have with C-suites about their social impact agenda and how we can help them do that, which will hopefully flow onto really revenue opportunities. This is designed to be a for-profit division of the business. But most importantly, it's about kind of harnessing the passion of everybody. We know that purpose-driven organisations are the most successful, and employees really, people want to be feeling like they're making a difference in the world, not just earning a paycheck. So we want to create the environment where people can do that.
Awesome. So it's actually a really exciting time it's a bit of a weird sit-stand situation with this bench here. You just sort of stuck to it. But it's a really exciting time for social impact at Dan, and there's two reasons for that. So the first one is we're making the transition from CSR, or corporate social responsibility, to social impact. So that doesn't sound like a big thing, but traditionally CSR has been seen as a part of a business that's kind of tacked onto the side. It's pro bono work, it's volunteer work. They don't necessarily have a very big influence at a C-suite level, and it's kind of an additional thing. The other thing about corporate social responsibility is that to create impact, to achieve these huge global challenges we have, it really takes all sectors to be part of that. So it's not just a corporate responsibility, it's corporate, it's government, it's social startups, it's enterprises, it's organisations like Isobar, and so we really need to position ourselves to have an impact in that way. So that's really exciting, and we're going to show you a little bit of a sneak peek of that, which is going to be circulated in a few weeks. The other exciting thing is that we now have a new global head of social impact, and her name is Anna Easton. And Anna has got a myriad of experience in the impact world, and she's come on board to Dan, and we've been really humbled because we had the opportunity to meet her pretty quickly and to have a bit of an input into what the Dan social impact strategy should be for the next few years. So this is, I've taken parts out of the Dan sort of theory of change. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that as a model, but I've taken some bits out, and essentially I guess the mission for the Dan social impact is to build a digital economy that works for all, use ideas and data to highlight opportunities, inequalities, innovations and solutions to educate on the potential power of the digital economy to create a more efficient and effective and fairer society. And they've sort of identified and established 3 focus areas that will have a number of programs under them to help achieve on that mission. So they are digital skills, tomorrow's leaders, and where Isobar Good will play a really big role in digital for society. So transforming the role of the brands in the digital economy, creating richer human experiences that build awareness, trust, and better outcomes for society. And obviously, again, Isobar Good, we're going to do that through helping organisations do more good by delivering value through experience design. We're going to help organisations integrate social impact into their business models, and then we're going to bring all those outcomes to life through experience-led transformation. So I guess to really, reiterate what Conrad was saying, you know, we do have a slide on this later on, but it really has been a long journey of how we talk about this and how we position ourselves and how we charge for our work. And one thing that we've really stayed true to the entire time is really having it carved out as a specific division of our business. And what that enables us to do is really have a space to focus on this type of work. The other thing is that, you know, it helps open doors to solve a different problem that our clients have and have a different conversation. So we're not really known in the social transformation at the market at the moment. It's a bit of a booming area, and there is money in this space. So $650 billion actually. And when I was speaking to Anna last week, she was like, where did you get that number from? And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to dig up the reports, and I'm a little bit lazy sometimes with putting references in my slides. And she's like, well, because I've got this report here in her gorgeous London accent. I've got this report, and the Australian market is like closer to $1 trillion. And then I was speaking to Pidge about it, who's our, our transformation director here, and we're working out the percentage of the American GDP. So it's worth lots and lots of money. And that's really exciting because organisations are finally figuring out that making money is not enough anymore. They're finally figuring out that they need to be accountable for social impact, environmental impact, community impact, diversity, sustainability. And we are now in a position through Isobar Good to really open those doors to help them achieve those things, because they will start to be on the hook for that. They're going to have to start to report to how they actually are having that impact. And Isobar Good gives us an amazing platform to kind of have that conversation. So it's another way to tell the Isobar story for a new audience and a different audience within the organisations that we're already working with. It's exciting, as we said, because we can play a key role in really helping Dan transform from CSR to social impact. And ultimately, you know, it's really our dream that in 5 years' time, we're not up here talking about Isobar Good. It's actually a core part of our business and how we run. It's just we're positioning ourselves in this way as a bit of a change piece, and then hopefully it'll become part of everything that we do. So we've spoken a little bit about the what, we've spoken a lot about the why, particularly around the commercial benefits. So now we're going to give you, talk a little bit about sort of how we're doing this and how we're doing this on some of our projects. Keeping in mind that I guess we're really trying to practice what we preach with human-centred design and experimentation, and really trying to learn from the people in this industry that we're doing this with. So the first one is helping achieve one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So does everyone know who the UN is, the United Nations? Weird head movements, yeah. They're kind of like the government of the world. They were set up in 1942. They really drive humanitarian rights. I would probably say that the most powerful countries in the world are part of that organisation. And 8 years ago, they got together and realised these huge global challenges that we had, and so they created not only a charter, but at the time, 16 goals. There's now a 17th goal and potentially an 18th goal specifically around mental health. But they created these 16 goals to help eradicate poverty, ensure everyone has access to clean water, health, education. Has anyone seen these goals before? All of the Isobar people are nodding because I plaster it around the agency. If you take one thing out of this session, please remember these goals. Please remember this slide, because they're about to get even more important for us as Australians. 3 months ago, the Australian government announced, and while that may be a little bit late considering these were written 8 years ago, 3 months ago the Australian government announced their commitment to these goals and how we're going to help achieve these goals. So again, I reckon we're going to start seeing these goals everywhere. There's already a number of organisations that have come out and announced their commitment to the goals and commitment to specific goals. Organisations like ANZ, Australia Post, so clients that we have. So again, it's such a great opportunity for us to go in at a C-suite level and say, hey, do you know that we have this part of the business that specialises in this? And do you know that we have a part of our business that can help you achieve and create impact in that way? So I know the Isobar Good team here, everyone's got their own sort of goal that they really feel attached to. I know Conrad is really passionate about number 4, quality education. Obviously, my love for this space sparked from number 3, good health and wellbeing. Gus, I think that you are climate action number 13, which I think Gus's point is if we don't do that, then what's the point in solving all the other goals? And I guess he's got a good point there. But the goal, my new favourite goal, and the goal that I really feel like we can play such an important role in not only at Isobar but also within Dan is goal number 17. So goal number 17 is partnerships for the goals, and that goal was added about 18 months after they formed these goals. Again, realising that it's going to take all walks of life and all different sectors for us to achieve these other goals. So number 17 is really about being the glue between different organisations, different goals to try and create change and impact at an unprecedented level. So we use them as a planning tool to guide us, whether it's an Isobar Good initiative or whether it sits with another part of our business. So, number 2, we solve a problem where we can embrace human-centred design. And even though this is really the bread and butter of what we do at Isobar, we embrace human-centred design on all of our initiatives, we have co-created a set of guidelines that we use on these projects to really ensure that we're delivering impact and to really ensure we're working in the leanest and most efficient way. So I'm going to get into those guidelines in a second, but has anyone seen this? Dan Lings, I was going to call you. I'm not sure if that's an appropriate term. So this is the UK Design Council's Double Diamond, and this is what we use as a delivery framework here at Isobar. I guess the key thing about this framework is that it captures, divergent and convergent mindsets, which help us solve problems. So that's, I guess, our delivery framework. And then over the top of that, we've got these standards and guidelines to really help us deliver impact in the areas most needed. So number 1 is we involve the people we're designing for every step of the way. It sounds really obvious, but often at times when you have a group of people in a meeting room, it's really, really easy to forget who we're actually designing for. Number 2, we're a self-organising multidisciplinary team. What that enables us to do is bring ideas from everywhere, which builds robust ideas. We share early and often, taking a user-centred and agile approach. We partner with organisations to understand their tools and systems. We create reusable initiatives with our partners, so systems, strategies, design libraries. We do a lot of that here at Isobar. Number 6, which is an incredibly important one that I think the whole industry can get a whole lot better at, is that we design for everyone. So we really champion inclusive design and accessibility. And we champion, universal design is probably a more correct term for it now, in that if you're designing for everyone, then everyone should be able to use it. So we measure the performance we make beyond cost and time, and then also we assess the progress at every stage through our Isobar Good Council of Experts. So this one's a bit of a whip, bit of a work in progress in terms of how really calling on the key metrics and pillars of goal number 17, partnerships for the goals, how we work across industries and sectors, use the collective knowledge of all of our clients in this space to help other Isobar Good projects, because even though we're experts at experience-led transformation and experience design, we're not necessarily water experts, or we're not necessarily sustainability experts, or we're not necessarily reusable consumption experts. So that's really exciting, and I think when we have our first session, we'll have a bit of a party and invite you all. And then lastly, beyond the measurements of our working principles, we create impact models that can really communicate the effectiveness of our work. So this is an example of an impact framework. And I was going to introduce Caro at the end, but we're really, really lucky. We've had Carolyn Sands, she's just up the back. Wave to everyone, Caro. She's the impact lead for us at Isobar Good, and she came on board at the start of the year, maybe, and is just really the Isobar Good special sauce, I say, because it's just really helping us bed down our offering, and if we can't actually measure the change that we're making, and if we can't actually communicate the change that we're making, then what's the point? So this is an example of an impact framework that we're using with Isobar Good, and by using a framework like this alongside our design work, it ensures that we're deeply rooting our work in outcomes rather than deliverables. So we're really making sure that we're creating change and we're not just delivering things that don't necessarily make a difference.
That's amazing. So how do we actually then apply all this stuff to like a client brief or some work? Like how do we get the rubber to hit the road? So we've kind of packaged up some offerings under Isobar Good that, as Cara said, we've kind of worked with clients on. So we've kind of tested this, reiterated them over time, and this is pretty clear now. So the Monash Health example that we showed at the start, and there's a few more examples in this deck. It was run as a design jam. So that's like a one-day sort of design experience with an organisation, with their stakeholders, with people from across like our business, but also our group, to help try and solve a challenge through design thinking on the day, or have a number of prototypes or a number of avenues that we could explore post that. And it's a really great way to kind of break down barriers in organisations, to get different stakeholders on board, to hear different people's viewpoints. But also, I've witnessed a few of these now, and the energy in the room and the motivation that comes from it to create change in an organisation post that is, it's quite addictive. So that's certainly a thing that we have a framework for. That potentially can also lead into a 2-week design sprint. So as Cara said, a multidisciplinary team comes together to try and solve a challenge, or create a prototype, or create some sort of design applications after, like, whether it be 1 or 2 weeks. And we sometimes sell that as a service and do that in collaboration with the client. We also are quite heavily involved in helping them with design validation. So there might be something that they're looking to do. They might have all the desktop research in the world. We want to validate it with users that this is actually going to affect, but also help them build a stronger, whether it be business case to unlock funding or a government grant application, with the premise that we'll assist them in doing that. But obviously, if it turns into revenue, then we'll be doing the work with them. And then obviously the bespoke engagements. So these are the bigger pieces of work. These are the bigger, programs that we have with organisations where we truly can create that societal impact. And we've got a number of examples of those too. So they're kind of the 4 key service streams that we have. And we've as Cara mentioned, this has been something that's been ticking along for maybe 3 or 4 years in Australia. To bring this to life, and this has been completely employee driven. This isn't an agenda from myself or our global CEO or anyone like that. This has all been our staff wanting to create a division in our business around doing social good. And we feel like we've come a long way over those 3 or 4 years. We've tried and failed a number of different engagement frameworks with clients. We've worked with the community. We've worked with these clients about how we could potentially build a better service offering, and help sort of co-design Isobar Good. Practice what we preach in a way, to get where we are to today. And we've got some really good momentum today too. So we managed to launch it in January this year. We got rid of the green Isobar Good, which was a no-no, and made it Isobar Orange. And we've had some great momentum. We've managed to speak at a number of conferences, or certainly Cara has. And we've got some great traction in some of the media. We've got inquiries coming through all of the time, and have some pretty amazing client stories to be able to share with you too.
You're one step ahead, Connors.
I'm trying to lead into that. Yeah. So Yeah, speaking of those, so these are some of the organisations we've worked with, and as Cara said, SDG number 17 is probably the goal that we feel like will have the biggest momentum for an organisation like us. The clients that we are talking to, that no doubt you guys will be talking to all the time, are starting to really look at their social impact agenda and how they align their business with one of these, at least one of these goals. And we feel like we can kind of do that to bring organisations together to kind of help solve one of these societal challenges. So these are all the organisations we've already had some experience and work with. So, and I think you're going to delve into a few case studies now.
Yeah, so we had an opportunity, again, probably about a year and a half ago, to actually work with the Digital Transformation Agency in Canberra. So they were a specific government agency set up by Malcolm Turnbull. It came out of his innovation regime about 3 years ago. It was sort of his baby back in the day when Malcolm Turnbull was in politics. But they were really, and they still are doing really, really interesting work, because they sort of came on board and have really been trying to streamline how we deliver government services to our citizens. So we were working directly with the Digital Transformation Agency, but for 3 other government agencies: the Department of Education, the Department of Human Services, which is Centrelink, and the Department of Social Services. So I'm not sure if any of you have done any government work before, but working with one government agency is already complex enough. So this was a really complex ecosystem, and this is really why they chose to take, I guess, a service design or experience design approach. And the topic area we were looking at, and I guess the area we were really looking to transform, was childcare. So does anybody have kids in childcare? Yeah, it's a pretty hard system to navigate. It's really, really expensive. Even when you are eligible for a rebate, it comes across kind of 2 different systems. And technology-wise, I'm sure you can imagine the complexities there. And this is why our citizens end up with these complex processes, because we're designing things from a process and a technology point of view, and not from a user point of view. So we had a really amazing opportunity where we travelled all over Australia. Everyone who knows me, everyone on my team just knows that I adore user research. It's my favourite part of my job, getting out of the office and kind of blowing away your assumptions and really finding out what these people need. But one of my favourite memories and parts of this project is when we went to the Northern Territory, and we went and spoke to a tiny little childcare centre about an hour out of Darwin, where the kids just kind of wandered in. They just walked in. They didn't have. They were all Aboriginal children. They didn't have any shoes on. They never brought any lunch, and we were kind of working with them, as well as then going to visit some of the most expensive, shiny childcare centres, at Docklands in Melbourne. So we really explored everything in this ecosystem, and the reason why we usually talk about this project is in terms of the broader change and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that we were looking at. Not only was it looking at sort of, how we're educating our youngest kids in their most important years, how we're educating them, but really it was looking at economic growth and essentially bringing women back into the workforce to contribute to that economic growth and to contribute to the diversity within workplaces. So it was a huge program of work that was just launched 4 months ago. So there's a lot of childcare centres in Australia that had this, and we took a working prototype to Cabinet. It's the first time in history that there was a digital prototype shown in Cabinet as opposed to reports and lots of long speeches. They didn't really know what to do with it or to do with us. But I guess it was a really exciting time. I'm not sure if anybody else is really passionate about how bills get passed through our Senate, but it was a really cool time because that prototype and everything that we found out was based on user research. It was based on the mothers and fathers of Australia who need to put their kids in care. So it received $30 billion worth of funding and has now been rolled out across Australia. And what that system does, and I'm happy to talk about it after this if anybody wants the technicalities of it, but essentially it gives us data, gives us childcare data to not only improve childcare policies, but to debunk, I guess, a whole bunch of, well, billions of dollars of fraud that was happening in the childcare system. So really, really big and meaningful project. The other one that we've done, which is a little bit more recent, is working with World Vision. So you've probably all heard of World Vision, one of the oldest and largest international charities. And it's a really exciting time for World Vision, because even though they've got a lot of challenges kind of transforming as a business, the work that they do on the ground in communities and the reach that they have globally through their programs is really quite phenomenal in how they actually give aid over the world. But we were in there actually helping them with their business model, actually looking at the process from when a sponsor donates $10 and how that money goes through the business and you know, where that money goes in the business and what programs it supports, to then how it actually makes its way to the field and what that money turns into. Because, as I'm sure you can imagine, if we have Jonah, who's a man who lives in Nairobi, who works in a field every day, guess what? He doesn't have a bank account. So, you know, that money doesn't just get transferred to Jonah, it actually goes into his community to build opportunities for him and his children and his peers. So we were really looking at that journey end to end to try and make it more efficient so that your $10 is really getting to Jonah in the most efficient way. So again, really, really interesting piece of work. Those 3 goals are the 3 UN goals that World Vision aligned to. They report to how they meet those goals every year. And then, and this, you know, we'd all be familiar with One Day for Change. It's a Dan initiative. But this year it was particularly exciting because we actually, we had so many people that we felt we had an opportunity to run a design jam with. It's really been an offering of the agency that has really taken off. And like Conrad said, it's so fun, it's exciting. One of the main reasons why I love doing design jams is I get to work with a lot of people in the agency that I wouldn't normally work with. So, you know, technical architects and developers. So it's a really exciting time for everybody involved.
It's just probably an interesting way to utilise the time for One Day for Change as well. You know, we did talk to a few of our clients, NFP clients, and they sort of suggested, look, you know, we'd love you to help out in our charity store or soup kitchen or something like that. However, we really need your skills applied to helping us solve a problem. So that kind of formed the idea about doing this design jam, and it might be something we can hopefully broaden out next year across the rest of the group.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because as we were, you know, I guess the approach that we take being with experience-led transformation is every time we have a meeting with a client or we're meeting with someone, we really treat that as a bit of a user research session, and we talk to them about what these people need. And what we found out that often those volunteering opportunities, it kind of creates more work for the organisation than to organise all of that for us, and actually the support we can have sort of getting in there and helping them. And really, it's a great way for us to get to know that organisation and for them to get to know us. Like, what a fantastic way to showcase the brilliant minds we have in our agency in a short period of time. So this year, we didn't really know who to do it with. So we ran a competition statewide, and I was actually hiking through the Andes in Peru. So amazing effort from the team. All parts of our team to pull this together, working with some really phenomenal organisations. So in Sydney, we did 2 design jams with Tattoo, talk about tobacco use, and IDX, the Indigenous Digital Excellence Council. And so they were looking at how we help Indigenous youth stop smoking and what the barriers are there. We also worked with the World Wildlife Foundation around how we can create really dynamic campaigns for their sponsors. In Melbourne, we worked with West Casa looking at domestic violence. So again, a huge issue in Victoria at the moment. We're really lucky that we've had exposure to this industry, and we'll talk about another project that's touching on domestic violence in a sec. But we also worked with the Climate Change Reality Project, which is a project and an initiative that has actually come from Al Gore. We have quite a big program of work in Australia around this. And this design jam was really looking at how we make climate change feel real for everyday Australians and how we actually work together, whether you're a hairdresser or a truck driver or work in a digital agency, how we actually work together to solve our massive issue of climate change. in Canberra. We worked with a new social startup called the Mill House, and what the Mill House have set out to do is help Indigenous youth transition into the workforce. And then over in Perth, the Perth team, and hopefully you guys will watch it later in the live stream, hi Perth, did an absolutely phenomenal job with their design jam with Water Corp. So we sort of, being in Melbourne, we send them some things and they just run with it. It's really, really phenomenal. So they were looking specifically about how vulnerable communities and how vulnerable individuals pay their water bills. So that was a really, really interesting space to look at. And then, as I mentioned, we, as Conrad mentioned, we had a few blows at the start of the year. We lost a few really big clients and had to really revisit our value proposition and what was happening in the market. And it's really exciting now. I really feel like we've sort of got our skates on and we're off. And we've just kicked off one amazing piece of work with Camp Quality. And Honey has just run out. I was just about to call out Honey, who's really leading that project from a strategic design point of view, with a team of developers and designers as well. But we're looking at how we create an app to help families and children who have gone through chemo and cancer treatment transition back to home. So another transitioning piece, huge problem in the health space. And then in a couple of weeks, we're kicking off a project for a couple of months with an organisation called the Good Samaritan Inn. And what the Good Samaritan Inn are, they are a domestic violence shelter, but they're one of the only shelters in Victoria and Australia that take an unlimited amount of children in with them when that woman in crisis essentially rocks up at that doorstep. Because even though, there's been a lot of funding in this space and there's a lot of shelters, most of them either A, don't take children, or B, only take 1 or 2. So if you then have 3 children or 4 children, then where do you go? So stay tuned for those projects. It really gives us a chance to flesh out our third, offering of bespoke engagements and really create change.
So that's really kind of, hopefully that's inspired you about some of the work that Isobar Good has done to date. And I know we've said Isobar a lot today, but really I feel like this is a bigger story for the rest of the group. As Cara mentioned, we've chatted to Anna Easton a couple of times now. Jean Lin, who's the Isobar Global CEO, is a big advocate and sponsor of Good. We're looking at unlocking some global funding to create some toolkits and enable the other Isobar offices around the world, but also the other DAN offices to sort of take a lot of this sort of thinking and application and apply it to their businesses. And really, I guess the ask of today is just have a think about if there's an opportunity to bring Isobar Good into a conversation that you're having with a client. We can certainly help from running a design jam together or helping you figure out how to do that yourselves. Kara's obviously knows the content and this space exceptionally well, and we've got a bigger, wider team that can help and support you guys too. So I think there's some email addresses there. There's also a number of other people who are heavily involved. Do you want to call out anyone, Cara?
Yeah, I guess, this is probably just a bit of a moment to sort of, stop and say thanks, because even though Conrad and I are up here talking about it and, have really been driving it, it really has been a team effort, and there's been some really key people in this agency who have had a really big part in that. And I kind of pinch myself when we now have, it was kind of started from me walking into Conrad's office saying we should do this thing, to now we have a team of...
Every single day, Cara.
I think I wrote a few business cases, but persistence is key, right? But this team of people here, I feel like are, one of the most talented team in our whole agency, and we're really lucky to have them on board to help drive this. So we've got Alberto, who's here today. Say hi, Alberto. He's one of our creative directors, but is really driving how we talk about Isobar Good, and how we visually talk about it. So it's been quite a journey on and how we visually talk about it. And I think you would agree that the deck and our look and feel is not only really hot but looks absolutely amazing. So that's, you know, testament to the studio team as well. So especially Gus and Lindsay and Louis, who, you know, Gus has really been one of the people from the start who was like, hey, I think we should do this thing. I think we should have a part of our business that's dedicated to this. And Gus, you know, you've been there every single step of the way. You always prioritise Isobar good. You always have amazing ideas. You're a phenomenally talented designer. And so thank you. I know that Gus has taken up, you know, he leads our studio now, and so is not on this slide, but he really is a big part of our team as well. I spoke about Carolyn before, but if you're ever speaking to any of your clients about impact, specifically social impact, we're so lucky to have Carol on board on our team here. She brings a wealth of knowledge around impact, and you know, is really helping me lead this here at the agency from a strategic design point of view as well. Michael Di Natale is on holidays at the moment, but we're working with him on, you know, lots of different new business approaches. Obviously, it's a new market, it's a new sector. We're trying to run lots of little experiments about how we engage with this space, how we engage our corporate clients with this space. So Dinner's had a really big role in that. And then, and I'm not sure if Rose is around, but she's helping us from a client engagement point of view. Conrad spoke about Jean, and then, you know, really a big shout out to Tish, Jerem and Sally, who are our national leads in Canberra, Sydney and Perth, who again have just taken this and run with this. Again, it hasn't been a mandate from us in terms of, hey, go and do this thing, hey, be this lead in your city. They have just been so interested in this space, and they are just members of the team who have gone out there, spoken to clients, you know, gotten the work that they want to do and brought it into the agency. So hopefully they're watching on the stream, but yeah, and there's so many other people at this agency who have had a really big role in Isobar Good. So come and chat to us, and hopefully we can do some work together.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
That's it. Are there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to ask? Ask Cara, not me.
Thoughts, feelings? Thanks.
I'm Jane.
How do you introduce the conversation? We're asking for work around social impact.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think there's a couple of ways. I mean, we're at Isobar really great at kind of, you know, pitching our offering and what we do, and I think we really need to integrate those goals and Isobar Good into part of that to make our clients aware, because all it takes is somebody in a boardroom to go, oh, I saw that in an email, or now we align to that. And if they see those goals, I really think it'll open up some opportunities for us. So I think it's actually just talking about it as part of our agency and also as part of our network. And I think the other thing is you know, asking those questions whenever we're doing work in terms of how they hope that work or that engagement or that program, what impact that's going to have on their end customers, what impact that's going to have on the community environment. And so I think it's not only when we're talking about Isobar and we're talking about Dan, having it as part of our story, because it is part of our story now, but also asking those right questions around, you know, have they heard about the goals? What key metrics they're responsible for, because most organisations, Dan included, have to report on sustainability metrics. The unfortunate thing is that it's not necessarily integrated into our day-to-day lives, and that's the shift and that's the change that'll be really exciting for us to make, and that's the shift and change that Isobar Good and goal number 17 can really play a meaningful role in. Hi, Morris.
Hello. Is there a PR release or like a press kit blogs that we're underrepresented in?
Is there a PR kit? Is there?
There's There's a lot more we can do, Maurice, I reckon. Yeah, get this story out constantly over and over again too, because I think we sometimes have a tendency in this industry to go launch something once and then that's done. We've done the press release, it's done. Now everyone knows about it, the world knows about it, and people forget it the next day. So yeah, lots of stuff we can do. There's lots of great stories, continual stories that we can promote out there too.
Yeah, and this is probably a bit more of an internal one, but we launched and we had to make some changes to our look and feel, and I think that's actually a really exciting time for us to potentially go, hi everyone, this is actually the work that we've been doing in a year. I think it's a great time for us to actually connect with all of our existing clients. So, talk to our Alberto and Chrissy and the studio team who are really building these assets, and Mel, who's our marketing. Probably means that it's time to stop talking. And Sarah, I don't know if you all know Sarah, but Sarah's our marketing director for Dan. Is that correct? Anyway, Sarah's amazing. She can turn any story. Sarah's amazing. She can turn any story into gold. And Sarah and Mel we're working with her quite closely on, our strategy for kind of getting this out to the market. But if you have any ideas, we have an Isobar Good creative brief. We have so much stuff. So come and help. Hey Gus, this is going to probably be the hardest question of the whole morning.
Can you please talk to
It's a really, really great question, and all those people on that slide that we just showed, our leads team, really were about to have a strategy session around our portfolio and who we're targeting, because it's really kind of two things for us. It's kind of new leads that are coming in, new clients that the agency have never worked with or the network's never worked with, and then also existing clients. We probably need to really refine how we're targeting those two groups, because we've got lots of ideas with new clients, particularly new not-for-profit and social clients, but we really need to go and reach out to the big corporate organisations around this. That's definitely a push we're going to do, and then same with reconnecting with some of our existing clients. And then I guess the other layer of depth to that is that just because one client doesn't necessarily fit into one of those sustainable development goals doesn't mean that we can't necessarily do a piece of work with them. So what I mean by that is that, Australia is full of lots of mining companies. Maybe this is a bad example to use, but, I'm sure you all have a smartphone here, and most of those materials, guess what, are mined from the ground. And guess what, most of you will probably have an updated phone in 2 years. So it's a thing that happens. So how can we potentially work with a mining organisation and a local Indigenous group to ensure that we're doing mining practices in an ethical and sustainable way that works for all users in those ecosystems? So I'm getting a little bit off track, but did the first part of that answer your sort of first question? Okay, cool. Caro. See, Caro, I told you she was amazing. Thank you, honey. We spoke about you before about camp quality, but you had dashed out. Yeah, initially when we started, the two goals we were specifically focusing on were health and well-being and good education. And I guess that comes from, our passion of really wanting to do this type of work in the health space. And this is probably going to be a really big part of we said we're going to have a strategy session around how we actually target those different goals. But beyond the partnerships for the goals, it's probably just working with the team on goals they feel passionate about and sort of going out and getting their work. But I'm so glad you asked that because, every single project that comes through this door, I feel could be an Isobar Good project because every single organisation links back to those sustainability goals in some way, even if they don't know it yet, you know what I mean? So I really feel like we have an amazing opportunity to help any organisation give back to the world in a more meaningful way. What's your favourite goal, honey? Do you want me... Any other questions? Really, really good questions there. And it's probably of all the offerings, the one that we're still a little bit unsure about for a couple of reasons, because there are so many opportunities for funding in this space. And the reason why we put that offering in is we were working with an organisation called Smiling Mind, and they were kind of like, we need to go for this grant, but we kind of need to do a little bit of work before we go for that grant. And so we worked with them to sort of say, we ended up doing another piece of work with them this year, but we sort of worked with them under the agreement that if they did win that grant, then we would then be the people who would do that work. It's a little bit risky for us. So that's kind of the first reason why we're sort of exploring that design validation. But then the other reason is if we can really show, put these grants in front of people, help them create it, then that will hopefully lead to more work for us. However, we are not in the business of grant writing. We are in the business of experience-led transformation. And we've ummed and ahed about whether that's a capability we invest in. And we're still sort of not really sure, but we would absolutely love the time and resources to kind of put into that, but we're just sort of probably erring away from it until we grow up, until we mature a little bit more as an offering. And that's why it's sort of, we ungrade... Oh, Conrad's got something to say.
Yeah, I was just going to mention another example, which was an organisation called Sleep Tight. So they worked with Deloitte to help them with their grant application through a CPG, and it's around elderly care. So, and this is going to be a way of sort of monitoring people's health in their bed. And obviously also know if they've sort of fallen out of bed as well in aged care facilities. So Isobar is brought on board as a partner to kind of help with the user research, with creating the user interface with that technology, etc. But Deloitte's really kind of running the grant application. So you might have seen in the press, they got like $1.7 million funding agreement through. So we're now working with them on that project, but with a number of other partners. So I don't think we'll ever be... Well, that's just through a community. So as I said, like, that's why I think it's important to kind of continue to build this good community, like whether it's, you know, through Dan, through Isobar, whatever, you know, like that, those opportunities are going to come through the community of the people that we know and the organisations that we work with and the stories that we tell, because I'm not sure that it's ever going to be, you know, we're ever going to be known necessarily just for that vertical. We're going to be that consultancy that can write that grant that you know, unlocks you $60 million of funding. Probably not, yeah. Yeah, Karen.
Good conversation. We do like to keep it to time, mate, though, just so people dedicating an hour. We can have plenty of conversation about it. You know the right people to come to. It is inspiring stuff. If you want to know more about Dan's CSR alignment, social impact, speak to Jane. You want to find out the commercial benefits for the great work that we're doing at Isobar, speak to Cara Connors. If you want to be part of Agency Exchange, hit me up, send us an email. We're looking to put a roster together for next year. We'd love to hear about the awesome stuff you're doing, whether you're in a brand or a function. Let us know. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks, mate.